Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to do a little reading vlog with you guys, and I'm really excited about this one because I've been planning it for weeks. So let me just tell you what we're doing. Today I am reading books that were recommended to me by friends of mine on bookstagram. So I chose five little bookstagram accounts that I love. I'll show them all around. And I asked them to give me one or two book recommendations that they think that I should read. And they all gave me a few, and I'm going to read them all, which means we're going to be reading a total of 9 books in this vlog, which is a lot. It's an ambitious task and a daunting one, but I'm excited because all of the books sound so good. The reason we have 9 instead of 10 is because one of the books was recommended twice by 2 different people, so I just decided to count that together. But each person recommended me 2 books, and I'll be reading all of them. I still have not acquired one of them, but it's on the way. It's being shipped. Most of these were purchased secondhand or borrowed from the library, so that's a win. We love that here. But a couple of them I did buy new because I was like, I'm probably going to love this and I'm probably going to want to keep it. So here are all the people that I am reading recommendations from. We've got Emily of M Reads, Kat from Lit with Kat, Candace from Coffin Candy, Ivana from Ivana in the City, and Dell from Books Beyond the Binary. Here are all the books that were recommended to me. I'll put them on the screen because there are so many to list. I'm going to start with Emily's recommendations because one of those is from the library and I need to get that one read and taken back. So we'll start with hers, and hers are The Inmate by Freida McFadden, which will be my first Freida McFadden. So I'm kind of excited, kind of nervous. I've heard mixed reviews, but that's going to be fun. We're going to start with that. And then His and Hers by Feeney, which I had never heard of. But it's giving mystery thriller, so that's going to be a fun tone to start off on. So let's just get right into it. I'm excited. Let's go. Do your best to ignore the absolute mess that is my desk right now. I'm 60% in to The Inmate. Am I liking it? Yeah, I'm kind of eating it up. Does it feel predictable? Yes. I think, in fact, that I may have predicted the ending in the first 60 pages. Now, it could be one of those, like, they're throwing me an obvious bone early on to make me think like I know what's going on. It could be one of those situations. Or I could just know what's going on. I can't decide. Well, here's the thing. I'm liking the book, but it feels like a junk food read, and what I mean by that is it's very entertaining, but it doesn't feel like really substantial to me. It doesn't feel like I will be thinking about this book and like raving about it for weeks after I finish it. It feels like it's gonna be I finish the book and then I'm like, oh, that was good, next. But I'm enjoying it. I'm a little frustrated at our main character because I just feel like she's really dumb. I feel like she's really dumb and puts herself in dangerous situations very easily and with very little consideration. Maybe I'm being too harsh, maybe. But I just feel like I just don't like her. I just don't really like our main character that much. She may prove to be an unreliable narrator. That's another suspicion that I have, but I'm not sure about that either. So that all remains to be seen. I have 40% left to read in this book. I'll probably finish it today. I don't know if I'll update you on that today or tomorrow. But regardless, you're gonna hear my thoughts on the end of the book whenever I finish it. So, but it's been interesting so far. I will say I'm enjoying it more than I thought I would because my my radar on Freida McFadden books has been like most book content creators that I watch find her to be disappointing and repetitive. I can see how they would think that. I can see how this is a very easy template to like rinse and repeat and just put out more books that are kind of similar. Of course, this is my first one, so maybe I'm wrong about that. But those are my thoughts so far. I'm going to continue reading it and then get back to you when I have another update. And I'm also going to eat these cuties because I need a snack. Good morning. It is bright and early this morning. Sorry, you can hear my coffee pot brewing. Okay, I know that's annoying. It's going to stop soon. We got to talk about the Inmate. I finished this last night. Finished it all in one day. So I can confidently say that it was an entertaining book. It was a fast book. It kept me interested. Did I like it? It's hard to answer that question because there are so many things about this book that frustrated the ever-living daylights out of me. The main character is just stupid. She practically ran towards every opportunity for danger that she possibly could, which was frustrating. And then at the end, I'm not spoiling anything. I'm not going to spoil anything. But when you... two things. When you go through like 4 plot twists at the very end of the book, that's the first problem I have. Second problem I have, when you use like 2 or 3 pages in the last chapter to present the reader with all of the lore of the book because they couldn't gather that information just by reading the book, that's a problem I have as well. Like, I would like to have been able to piece together the ending without being spoon-fed at the end. You know what I mean? If I'm gonna read a mystery, I want to be able to like have the chance to solve the mystery. This ending was so out there and plot twisted for me that there's just no chance. And I even look back at like the foreshadowing they were doing, and I understand that was to like throw you off. And I'm glad that the foreshadowing, I'm glad that it wasn't just giving you the ending, because I really thought, like, if I have this figured out already, that's also a problem. But I just would have liked to have some, like, breadcrumbs that I could follow to this conclusion. And I just didn't get that. While I was reading the last few chapters, I was reading with my husband in the room, and like, I kid you not, every 5 minutes I was like, what in the world? What is going on? What the heck? Like, I was vocally frustrated. Was it a bad book? No, it was not a bad book. This book is for someone who wants a fast-paced, interesting, entertaining read. This book is like junk food. Okay, I couldn't make up my entire reading personality around this book because I would just get sick of it. But it's fun every once in a while, you know? If you want something quick and fast and entertaining, here you go. It just doesn't have a lot of substance. Like, you're not gonna walk away from this book feeling like you learned something or like discovered something profound. Not that every book has to do that, but this one just definitely doesn't do that. But I didn't hate it. I had to sit on it for a while to decide if I hated it or not, because I was just so frustrated with the plot twists over and over. I was like, do you want me to remember everything that happens, or are you trying to confuse me? Because I just feel confused. But I think I'm going to end up rating this 3 stars, which feels which feels good to me because it doesn't feel like I'm being too harsh and it doesn't feel like I'm being generous. I just feel like this is a 3-star book. Like, it's very average. It does the job that it set out to do. It entertained me, but it didn't do anything else. And usually when I'm picking up a book, I want it to do something else as well, you know? Emily, I want you to know I didn't hate this. I just was frustrated because I could not figure out what was going on. But yeah, 3 stars. If you have any other Freida McFaddens that you'd like to recommend me, I would be interested to see if I had the same feelings about her other books. I'm not going to like prioritize reading her books, but I am intrigued because all the reviews that I was reading on this book were very similar to my issues with it. At least the books that were rated, or the reviews that were rated three stars, were very similar to mine. But I would be interested to see if her other books feel the same, like if they're kind of copy and paste. Because when I read a book like this, I imagine it's like a template for all of the rest of the books by the same author, which is not bad. You know, make money how you want to make money, but if I'm going to read her books, I want them to be, you know, different from each other. I don't want to read the same book over and over. Anyways, if you have recommendations, let me know, and maybe I'll read another Freida. Maybe I'll do it. Oh, I didn't have coffee yesterday, and having coffee this morning just makes it so good. I missed you. We're gonna move on to the next book. We're gonna read His and Hers by Alice Feeney today. So hopefully I enjoy that one. I have higher expectations for that one than I did for the Freida, because I know about Freida. I've heard things about Freida. I really don't know anything about Alice Feeney, so I'm excited to get into it. Let's go. First of all, it's raining, so if you can hear that, apologies. Hopefully it's nice ambiance and not something obnoxious. Second of all, I read this in one sitting, and I didn't update you at all, and for that I apologize, but it was very good. I have a little bit of trouble with unreliable narrator stories. Sometimes it can get a little bit frustrating for me, but when it's done well, it's done well, and this one was done well. Did I figure out the ending a little bit? Kind of, but there were things that I didn't figure out that still made the ending interesting, even though I kind of had my suspicions. But what was nice about this is there were multiple red herrings, and so there was always something else that you could be suspicious of, so you were never 100% sure that you had it figured out. Unlike the Inmate, where one red herring was like spoon-fed to you the entire book until all of a sudden, uh-oh, you were wrong about what you were thinking the entire book. This one had a few different like suspicious things happening, and so you were always kind of questioning yourself and the characters and stuff like that. So I liked this one a lot better than the Inmate. I think I'm going to end up rating it 4 stars because it wasn't a 5-star book. There were times where I felt like it was a little bit repetitive in the inner monologue sense. But it wasn't a huge turnoff for me. I will say though, huge trigger warnings, especially in the second half of the book. Really big trigger warnings. It was hard to sit there and read all of the things that were happening to these girls. I'll maybe put a couple of trigger warnings on the screen so that you can be prepared if you are wanting to read this. It was kind of disturbing, actually really disturbing, but luckily we didn't dwell on that for too long, and I understand why it was there for the backstory sense. I get it, but it was a lot. So yeah, 4 stars. Good job, Emily. Good job with this one. I definitely enjoyed myself. I'm excited to get to the next one. Let's see what's next. We're reading Migrations next, and I'm very excited. So I'm gonna be starting that today, and then I'll update you when I have something to say, I guess. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad's the lighting? 10? It's the worst that it could be? Awesome. Let's still talk about this book anyways. So this is Migrations. I took the dust jacket off because I felt like it. I mean, what other reason do I need? So it's looking a little crusty because this was used. My dogs are gonna knock over my camera. I just know it, bestie. Clover, no. No. Okay. So I am at part 2, which I think is almost exactly, if not exactly, halfway through. And I've been reading it over the past, I guess, 2 days. And even though this book is shorter than the other books that I've read so far for this vlog, I'm taking it a lot slower, and I think that it was written to be read slowly. And I'm not saying if you read this fast, you're wrong by any means, but for me, reading this like a couple chapters a day has just like, man, there's so much depth to this, and it just feels very profound, and I want to take my time with it. And I'm glad that this book is short so that I'm able to take time with it and still, you know, get this vlog done in a timely manner. But this is it's kind of giving no plot, just vibes, even though there is a plot, but it feels more vibey than plotty, if that makes sense. You're following a scientist, a bird scientist. What's that called? I don't remember. But she's following the last migration of 3 Arctic terns. And this is in the future when birds are going extinct, fish are going extinct, climate change is happening, you know. And she gets on a fishing boat with a bunch of sailors who are looking for fish because that's their career, they're fishermen. And she's like, hey, if you take me on this path and follow these birds, I promise you, you will find fish. Please let me come with you. And they're like, okay, fine, I guess. And so she goes on this journey with them to follow these Arctic terns on their last migration. And the way that this is written, you guys know I love Mary Oliver so much. Like, she's my favorite poet. I reread a book by her at least once a year. The writing is so reminiscent of Mary Oliver, and I have just been eating it up. I have loved it so much. You can kind of see how many times I've tapped it. Like, that is just full of beautiful poetic moments, both about love, about belonging, about our connection to the natural world, about climate change. Like, this is just profound. And there's been a little bit of a twist developing in here, and so I don't know if that's actually a twist or if that's just backstory that's going to provide more light on this main character. But I certainly did not expect that to happen. So I'm still learning about her past, and yeah, I just have been really liking it. I think that I'll probably finish it tomorrow. I'm taking off of work this week because we're about to get snowed in, so tomorrow's a snow day. I feel like it's the perfect day to hunker down and read this book that takes place in the freaking Arctic winter. So it's just gonna be perfect, and I'm really excited. But I wanted to give you a little update since I'm around halfway through and I haven't talked to you about this book yet. But Kat, I'm loving it so far. I'm loving it. I don't know if I can confidently say yet that it'll be 5 stars, but it'll at least be 4 stars. Like, it's gonna be in the upper ranks for me. It's just lovely. So this was a great recommendation. I I can't wait to see what else happens in here. My hair is looking like something else today because I blow dried it, and my hair is never happy when I use heat on it, but that's fine. I finished this morning. I think it changed my life. I didn't think that I was gonna get emotional reading this, but the last couple of chapters, the last couple of pages really did me in, and I closed the book after shedding a few tears. And then I was telling my husband about it, and I was talking to him about like all the things that were so moving to me and profound and just like really left an impression on me, and then I just started like weeping. So definitely just wonderful. And as a bird lover, as someone who absolutely adores birds, to read a book centered around the extinction of birds as a whole species, but also like specifically to the Arctic terns, it was just, it just blew my mind. And it was beautiful and tragic, and the story went places that I did not expect it to go. I debated on whether or not I was going to rate it 5 stars, because initially it didn't leave me with a 5-star book feeling, but the longer I thought about it and the longer that I sat with my emotions that I was feeling, I was like, no, this is 5 stars. It changed my life. I tabbed so much of this book. It was just beautiful, amazing, life-changing, brilliant. And about 30 minutes after I finished this book, Piranesi came in the mail just in time for the snow to start. So I've been reading this for the past couple of hours, and I'm just about done. We're just about done, and I've been generously tabbing this book as well. And it's nothing like what I thought it would be. I didn't really have a lot of expectations for this book, but it was one that I didn't expect to have strong feelings about. But I'm really intrigued to see how this ends. It's just so different from what I expected. And like I said, I didn't go in with a lot of expectations, but I really enjoyed it. I don't think it's a 5-star book by any means. But it's definitely up there. It's definitely up there. Fascinating. I don't think I've ever read anything like this before. So this is good. This is good so far. Sorry for the lack of updates. I feel like I've not been doing a very good job, but I've just been getting sucked in to these books, which is great. It means that they're interesting, they're captivating, they're enthralling. So I would call that a win. I'll let you know what I think when I finish it, because that'll be very, very soon, like I said. So same angle, different hair, because I got sick of it being frizzy. But I finished Piranesi, and it was very, very good. Much better than I expected it to be. I'm not sure what I'm gonna rate it. I don't know what I'm gonna rate it. It's not 5 stars. I think it's somewhere in the realm of like 4 to 4.5. But I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna land on. I'll put it up here whenever I decide. You know the drill. But now we're moving on to the next book. I guess I should tell you a little bit about Piranesi, huh? The thing about it is, I don't know how to explain the plot. Because much like the synopsis implies, it is a labyrinth of a book. There are lots of hallways, lots of twists and turns, lots of corridors to go down. But in the end, you have enough of a grasp on what happened to feel satisfied with the ending. And that's what's important to me. If the ending had felt like unfinished or loose, then I would have been upset. But I feel like it was tied up really well. So I appreciated that a lot. And I really liked the characters, although there were very few of them. I thought that they were lovable for the most part, other than like the antagonist of the book, but I mean, you know. But I really liked it, so I'm excited to get to the next one. Good job, Kat. Good Rex. I'm very satisfied. Now we're reading Cemetery Boys, which will be my first book recommended by Candace, and I'm very intrigued by this. I know nothing about this book. I've seen it recommended a bunch of times on Instagram and BookTube and all the places, but I know very little. Okay, so it's giving like supernatural. That's kind of cool. Yadriel has summoned a ghost and now he can't get rid of him. When his traditional Latinx family has problems accepting his gender, Yadriel becomes determined to prove himself a real brujo? With the help of his cousin and best friend Maritza, he performs the candace ritual himself and then sets out to find the ghost of his murdered cousin Miguel and set it free. However, the ghost he summons is actually Julian Diaz, the school's resident bad boy, and Julian is not about to go quietly into death. He's determined to find out what happened and tie up some loose ends before he leaves. Left with no choice, Yadriel agrees to help Julian so that they can both get what they want. But the longer Yadriel spends with Julian, the less he wants him to leave. Okay, sounds interesting. I'm excited to give this a shot. Who knows how long it'll take me to finish this. This is one of my longer books, I believe. Let's see how many pages we've got here. 342 pages, so that's not bad. This is probably the longest book that I've read so far in this vlog, but it's doable. We can do it. Let's just get into it. Let's go read. Good morning. You know the drill. Do your best to ignore the coffee pot noises. I gotta tell you what I'm thinking about this so far. So first of all, I'm 14 chapters in, which is around the 55% mark. So I've been zooming through. This is a young adult book, which I kind of forgot about until I looked it up. I'm kind of loving the simplicity of the plot because if it wasn't, I'm so sorry, if it wasn't catered to young adults and it wasn't simplified in that way, I think I would have a hard time following what was going on. But because of it, it's making it easily digestible, easily understood, very much appreciated. I am making myself a glossary because there is so much Spanish in this book, which I love, but I also don't know Spanish. So this is like a running list of all of the words I've had to look up, words and phrases. I love the characters. The plot is interesting. I'm very engaged in the story. I think I'm probably gonna cry based on what I know so far and the relationships between the characters, how those are affecting me. I love the queer representation in this book. It's so cool to learn about different cultures and like their religious practices and things like that. It's just fascinating to me. And it's cool to read from diverse authors. I love when I get the chance to read from authors from different backgrounds than me. Here's our author. Sorry about the glare. I know that it's I know that the plastic is making it hard to read this, but Aiden Thomas is a queer trans Latinx author, born in California, and this is their debut novel, which is so cool. I was just telling Matt last night, I think I must be a sucker for debut novels because last year my favorite book of 2024 was The Berry Pickers by Amanda Peters, which was her debut novel. I also loved Mame by Jessica George. Yeah, Jessica George, and that was her debut. Migrations was a debut novel. This is a debut novel. Like, are we sensing a pattern here? So yeah, I'm really enjoying this so far. I have no idea when I'm gonna end up rating it, but I think I'll finish it today. So I'll let you know soon. Also, yeah, I'm wearing the same outfit that I wore yesterday. It's a snow day, and outfit repeating is cool, so sue me. This was very, very good. I didn't cry, and I think that's because everything, like, it wasn't a sad ending. I thought it was going to be a sad ending, and maybe because it's a young adult book, everything kind of needed to wrap up in like a happily ever after way. But it wasn't like an unbelievable happily ever after. Like, it all worked out in a way that made sense, which was really, really great, and I loved it. I loved the way it ended. I loved the characters. I think I'm going to end up rating this 4.5, teetering on the edge of 4.75. Like, I almost want to rate it 4.75, but I don't feel like confidently grounded in that rating. And I think my emotions may be catching up with me. But I think 4.5 is a solid rating. It's really, really good. I would say this was definitely on par with Piranesi, which I also ended up rating 4.5. So that just makes sense to me. Anyway, it did get kind of old having to create this glossary of terms, but also I think it was a good like learning opportunity for me, so I didn't hate that. I do wish that there was like a glossary already printed in the back. I think that would have been really nice. But this was a very sweet book. It was touching, it was heart-wrenching at parts, it was emotional. The plot made sense, like I said, so I didn't feel like it was disjointed or difficult to follow in any way, which was really nice. I really liked it a lot. Good job, Candace. This was great. I would definitely recommend this to someone who was looking to add more queer representation to their romance reading. Even though this wasn't like all romance by any means, but there were like romantic things woven through. It was just nice to have some diversity in my reading, and I think this was one of the first books, if not the first, that I have read by a trans author, unless I read a book by a trans author and just didn't realize it, which is possible. But that's really cool, a cool milestone for me, so very much enjoyed this, and now we're gonna move on to the next one. And that next one is The Reformatory, which I've heard so many good things about. Candace recommended this one to me, and Dell also recommended this to me, so I'm doing like a 2-for-1 type of thing. Or 1 for 2? I guess 1 for 2. Anyway, I'm counting this towards both of their recommendations. This is one of, if not the biggest book that I'll be reading for this vlog. So hopefully I can get it done in a timely manner, but I'm really excited. It takes place in Jim Crow, Florida in 1950. Following a trivial scuffle with a white boy, 12-year-old Robert Stevens Jr. is sent to the Gracetown School for Boys, but the segregated reformatory is a chamber of horrors, haunted by the boys that have died there. In order to survive the sadistic school warden and the evils meted out in this funhouse, Robert must enlist the help of the school's ghosts, only they have their own motivations. My my reading inflections are so not on point today, but here's the back of the book. You can just take a second to read that if you want. I don't know why I can't like speak properly. I'm excited. It's got a blurb on there from Stephen King. So sounds pretty good to me. I've heard great things. Yeah, okay, let's get into it. This is one of those books that, even though it is large for me, for my typical reading habits, even though it's a very long book, I can't put it down. I feel like I'm flying. I'm flying through it. I mean, you can see where my tabs end and where my bookmark is. I am 427 pages in. I've been reading since this morning, and it is what time? Almost 5 o'clock. So I've pretty much been going through this nonstop since I woke up. And I'm on chapter 31. I don't know if I'll finish it tonight, but I'll definitely finish it in the morning if I don't finish it today. It is amazing. Amazing. Every good review that has ever been written about this book is spot on. This book is so impactful and devastating and heart-wrenching and hard to read, but you ache for justice. And that's what keeps you going. You just want to see a happy ending for these characters, and it just makes you feel a lot, and the horror elements are definitely there. It's not a scary book, but it is disturbing. And like I said, just hard to read, hard to fathom, hard to imagine. But every pain inflicted on these characters is a pain that you feel as a reader. And that is the mark of excellent writing, in my opinion. So I'm going to keep reading. We'll see how far I get. I think the plan is to read until the sun goes down, which should be very soon. But I might end up reading for even longer. I might even pull out my book light and try to finish it tonight. I don't know. But it's amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. I don't know if I can rate it any less than 5 stars. We're gonna see. We're gonna see how it ends, and then I'll give my final rating. But right now, this is a 5-star book. 5 stars. 5 stars. Easy. Look at all my tabs. Look at all those tabs. Very impactful. All these tabs were moments that I was like, oh, oh. Like I felt so much in this book. It was, I feel like I'm speechless. I loved the way it ended. I'm very happy with the way it ended. Easy 5 stars. Perhaps one of the easiest 5-star ratings I have given thus far in 2025. Brilliant. No wonder it was recommended to me twice. Now we're moving on to Ivana's picks, which we begin with my namesake, Lucy, by Jamaica Kincaid. I know nothing about this book, but I know that both Ivana and Kat have talked about this on their channels before, and the fact that it is titled with my name kind of makes me feel partial to it, but I'm excited to get into it. Contemporary fiction. Ooh, look at those margins. This is gonna take no time at all. I'm probably gonna finish this one and Ivana's second pick today, both, and then start on my last book later this afternoon. So we're flying through. We're making great progress. I'm gonna read the back summary for you. Lucy is 19, a vinegary, quick-tongued au pair from the West Indies who has left behind her island girlhood for a fierce awakening in urban North America. At first, she is dazzled by her employers, Louis and Maria, or Mariah, not sure. Their 4 storybook daughters and their perfect marriage. Yet almost at once, Lucy begins to notice cracks in this beautiful facade. Even as she scrutinizes Louis's and Maria's lives, Lucy is beginning to unravel the mysteries of her own sexuality, confronting bitter and haunting memories of her past. Gradually, she begins to untangle disarmingly complex feelings for the most important figure in her life, her mother, whom she both cherishes and scorns. In Lucy, Jamaica Kincaid has created a captivating heroine possessed with adamantine clear-sightedness and ferocious integrity. Lucy is Kincaid's most beguiling and powerful work to date, a fitting successor to her highly acclaimed first novel, Annie John. I have a feeling that this book is going to expand my vocabulary, which is great. So let's get started. And here we are a few hours later where I have finished Lucy by Jamaica Kincaid. Look at all those tabs. I wish my camera would focus on the things that were important, but hey, it's the thought that counts. Look at that. I rated this 4.25. It was very thought-provoking and very good, and I think that it has definitely left an impression on me. I will say, my feelings about Lucy the character are complicated because I'm not the type of person to enjoy a story about an unlikable character or like a character you have complicated feelings about. There are good things about Lucy. I love her feisty nature. I love that she is unapologetic and determined. It's very admirable, her sense of motivation, and she's just so willing to go after whatever it is that she wants, and that's inspiring. But she's also so so bitter and judgmental and critical, sometimes for good reasons, and this is where the complications come in. My feelings about this are very complex, and that's part of the reason that I rated it 4.25, because it's not 5 stars for me. This was not an easy book to love, but I think it's one that I will return to. I think that it's one that I want to sit with and dwell on more at a later date. I tapped so much, but I thought I would read you just a little passage that would kind of give you an idea of Lucy's internal monologue and just the way that her thoughts sound on paper. In this, she's talking about a friend of her boss. She's an au pair, so she works for a couple, and Maria, her friend Dinah, comes to visit, and so Lucy's talking about Dinah and her thoughts on Dinah, and it just made me laugh reading this. She said Dinah was a wonderful person, so giving, so full of love. She said, "What I like the most about Dinah is how she embraces life." And this almost rushed out of me. Yes, you mean your life. She embraces your life. But I caught myself. For if Maria had asked me what I meant, I would not have been able to explain. I did not like the kind of woman Dinah reminded me of. She was very beautiful, and it mattered a great deal to her. Among the beliefs I held about the world was that being beautiful should not matter to a woman, because it was one of the things that would go away. Your beauty would go away, and there wouldn't be anything you could do to bring it back. I could see that Dinah was attached to her beauty. She stroked her hair from the crown of her head all the way down, constantly. She would put her hands to her mouth, not in modesty, but as a gesture to draw attention to her lips, which were perfectly shaped, the sort of lips used in advertisements for lipstick. I did not like this kind of woman, but it only showed what a superior person Maria was, that she saw in Dinah not a woman who envied her, but a friend full of goodness and love. I viewed her as a cliche, as something not to be, as something to rise above, as something I was very familiar with, a woman in love with another woman's life, not in a way that inspires imitation, but in a way that inspires envy. I had to laugh. She had her own husband, she had her own children, 2 boys, 2 girls. She had her own house in the city and one on the lake. She had the same things Maria had, and still she liked Maria's things better. How to account for that? So, as you can see, Lucy has a lot of opinions, and a lot of those opinions are very valid and true, but the way that she delivers them and the way that she thinks them is also harsh and blunt and rough around the edges, and sometimes that's very good, and sometimes it was just a little bit grating for me to read. I like to like my characters, and Lucy was just a complicated character. Nothing wrong with that, but just wasn't my all-time favorite. But like I said, I think that I will be returning to this because I feel like there's a lot to absorb, a lot to get out of this. So 4.25. Now we're gonna read Happening by Annie Ernaux, I think is how you pronounce her name, and that is a very short one as well. I think less than 100 pages. So I will most likely be finishing that in one sitting, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Okay, I just finished Happening. Hard to read. I think this is an important book. It follows Annie. This is her memoir. It follows Annie in 1963 as she seeks out an abortion in France during a time when it was illegal. And so you can just imagine the horrific things that she has to go through in order to make that happen. It's very graphic, devastating and sad, and it makes you think about where we are now when it comes to reproductive rights and women's rights in general. And it's just a hard thing to read whenever you're like, oh, we might actually be going backwards in time. I'm gonna rate it 4 stars because it was difficult, but I think it's very important, and I'm glad I read it. So, not a lot of thoughts because it's 96 pages. I did tab a few things, but not a lot of things. I liked the style of her writing. It went back and forth between like recounting what happened in like a journal entry type of way, and then in parentheses sometimes she would have thoughts about those thoughts. So it was interesting. But now on to the last book of the vlog. My most anticipated, or one of my most anticipated releases of 2025. I'm very excited to read this. I'm also very nervous because I've heard mixed reviews. Grady Hendrix is one of, if not my favorite horror authors out there right now, so I'm very excited. This one's gonna take me a good chunk of time probably, but now that I finished all my other ones, I feel like I can just lollygag my way through this one, so I'm excited. I'm excited to read it. So, my hair's not looking the best, but we're gonna get over it. I finished this, and unfortunately, it's my least favorite Grady Hendrix that I've ever read, I think. It's a tie for last place with the Final Girl Support Group, which, don't get me wrong here, I still rated the Final Girl Support Group 4 stars. Like, I liked it, but I didn't love it. And when I read Grady Hendrix, I expect to love them because there are so many of them that I have loved. My Best Friend's Exorcism, Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, How to Sell a Haunted House, loved them all. I feel like I'm missing one that I also loved. Anyway, you get the point. I had high expectations for this. It felt predictable. It felt like any story where girls discover witchcraft and they find out that there are consequences to their actions. Like, I wasn't surprised by anything that happened. I got bored. I considered DNFing it a few times. I'm glad that I didn't, because the epilogue, I loved. I loved the epilogue. The way that it wrapped everything up was really good and probably saved this book. But I'm just disappointed. I'm disappointed. I don't know how much I can actually say without spoiling stuff, so I'm not going to give you a whole lot of thoughts because you just need to read it if you're interested in it. It might be for you. If you loved Final Girl Support Group, you might love this one. I don't know. This one wasn't for me. And I'm sad because it takes place in one of my favorite time periods. It takes place in the 1970s. And I just expected more. I expected more. I'm flip-flopping between a 3-star rating and like a 3.25 because I want to rate this higher. And also I want to say the acknowledgments that he wrote at the end made me feel a lot better because there's something about a male author writing about female characters that makes me a little bit uneasy, and I think that's like my own biases coming into play, and I need to like get over it a little bit. But he, in the acknowledgments, wrote all about like the research that he did for this book, and like all of the people, all of the OBGYNs, the doctors, the lawyers, even like covens that he spoke to and researched with in order to write this book. And he says, let me read it. He says in the acknowledgments, "I tried to imagine what it was like to have a child but not know if they were alive or dead, sick or well, and I couldn't. So I did what I always do when I can't figure something out. I wrote a book." And I think that's respectable. That sounds like something that I would do. If I didn't understand something, I would research the hell out of it and then write a personal essay or a blog post or a book if it was enough thoughts to be put in a book. But this did not feel like horror to me, and that's what I wanted it to be. I wanted to be spooked. I was grossed out a few times. I felt sick a few times and not in a way that was like, ooh, that's gross, but it was like I'm gonna throw up. I'm gonna throw up. So it wasn't like enjoyable to me, because there are times even in a Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires where I would get grossed out, but it was like I got the heebie-jeebies. It wasn't like I was gonna vomit. So this is ranking pretty low for me. I'll put my final ranking on the screen as I do, but it's gonna be in the 3-star range, I think. It felt skimmable. It felt like I could have just read the end and know what happened in the entire other 400 pages. So, not the best note to end on, but let's do a little recap. Let's go through all the rest of the books. I'll rank them, bottom to top. How about that? Here we are at the end of the vlog. We've read all the books, and now I'm going to give you some final thoughts. So first of all, I will rank the books that I read from bottom to top, worst to best. Keep in mind that the lowest rating is a 3-star, which I don't think is bad. It's just very average, like nothing special about it type of thing. We're gonna start with, we're starting with the Inmate, which I don't have physically in front of me because it's now back at the library. That one, easy 3-star rating, very average. I wasn't a fan of the plot twists, wasn't a fan of the end, and I got frustrated with the main character. So for those reasons, 3 stars. But I will say it did keep me interested. It did keep me reading. I think I finished it within like a 24-hour period. Next up, probably the biggest disappointment of the video because I was looking forward to this so much. Also 3 stars. So again, not a bad book. The ending was really good. And I liked most of the beginning part. You can kind of see where my tabs were. I tabbed a lot in the beginning and not a lot in the end. So the first half of the book was good. The last half felt predictable, but the epilogue really sealed the deal for me. So this was a fine book, just not what I expected from a Grady Hendrix. 3 stars. Next, we jump up to the 4-star rating. So we have The Happening. The reason why this one is 4 stars and not higher is because it kind of made me sick. It was hard to read, but I think it's an important read. It's a memoir. It's about reproductive rights, about the experience of womanhood and all of its horrors. And so for that reason, 4 stars. It was good. And I might read it again someday just to learn more from her. And I am definitely interested in reading more from Annie, so good one. Next is His and Hers. Very good mystery thriller. Had some twists and turns in there, several different red herrings to keep you off of the ending, so you weren't spoiled for it unless you're just really, really smart and then you figured it out. I kind of figured it out, but there were things that I definitely did not guess that were like really good, interesting plot twists. There were definitely some major trigger warnings that need to be noted, which I already talked about whenever I finished the book in the first place. And there were some problems that I had with the two main POVs. Their inner dialogue kind of got repetitive for me, so it wasn't my fave. But definitely the second half of the book picked up a little bit, and I was like flying through it. I read it in one sitting. Next up, we've got Lucy, which I rated 4.25 stars, so slightly above the previous two. Lucy's a complicated character, and there were times that I loved her and admired her, and times that I was like, ugh, I don't know if I can endorse your actions here. But it was definitely an interesting book. I tabbed a heck of a lot. I'll definitely be returning to this in the future because I think that there's more to glean from this. So 4.25. And next we've got Piranesi, which was probably the surprise of the vlog. I did not expect to like this as much as I did. I rated it 4.25. I think that that's a pretty solid rating for this. Sorry if you can hear my refrigerator rumbling. I don't know why that's happening. But I definitely, in the beginning, was confused. I had no idea what was going on, but once you get a little bit further in, you start to understand who Piranesi is and understand a little bit of how he got in the labyrinth in the first place. And it's just really interesting. I've never read a book like it, so very good, 4.25. I liked it a lot. Next we've got Cemetery Boys, which I also rated 4.25, but I was like this close to rating it 4.75, so I almost want to say that it's like 4.55 stars. Like I think I enjoyed it slightly more than Piranesi, but it was so close that I didn't feel like confident about rating it any higher. But it was so good. It made me feel a lot of things. The story was interesting, and because it was YA, it was a very simple plot to follow. Like, I didn't get confused, which was really nice. I don't like being confused when I'm reading a book. Queer representation, Latinx culture, lots of Spanish words, which I showed you my my homemade glossary. I learned a lot of Spanish reading this, which was fun. Very good. I really enjoyed it, a lot more than I thought I would. Next we've got Migrations. Oh, I loved this book so much. Look at all those tabs. I feel like this book changed my life. It was such an easy 5-star rating. I almost want to reread this like immediately just to underline and get the most I can out of this. But it was such a moving story. It was emotional. It made me appreciate birds so much more than I already do, and it just made me think about climate change and nature and the consequences of our actions that could happen in the future. And it was phenomenal. The main character was really interesting. I had no idea what was going on with her past, and it was really cool to learn her backstory and just like, I don't know, it was so good. I loved it so much. 5 stars. Brilliant. Last but not least, because obviously it's the best, the Reformatory. Also a 5-star rating, but I flew through this, even though it was one of the bigger books, maybe even the biggest book that I read in this vlog. I read it, I think, within a 24-hour period as well. Like, I flew through this, and it made me feel so much. I think this would be sorry, whoa. I think this would be such a valuable read for anyone wanting to diversify their reading. Takes place in Jim Crow, Florida in 1950. Has a little bit of a horror twist, but it's not like scary. It's more intense and suspenseful than it is scary creepy. But it was really, really good. I loved it. I'm so glad that I own it. I'm so glad it was recommended to me twice. It definitely deserves both recommendations. Wonderful. So these are all the books that I read, minus The Inmate, which is back at the library, as I said. And look at them all. They're so beautiful and lovely. And I'm so glad I got to read all these books. And now last thing I want to do is rank my recommenders and basically give out like a winner trophy to who gave me the best recommendations in this vlog. I ranked them by what their books were ranked, if that makes sense. So I added up the two rankings together to get their final score out of 10. So perfect score would have been 2 5-star books, for example. So we've got Emily at 7 out of 10 with The Inmate and His and Hers at the bottom of the ranking, but still very, very good books that I'm really glad I read. So there's no losing here. I feel like you still won. Dell with 8 out of 10, Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, which is a tongue twister and also a disappointment for Grady Hendrix, but it was still a good read. And then we had The Reformatory, which was one of my favorites of the vlog, so you kind of balanced yourself out there. Then we've got Ivana with 8.25 out of 10 with Lucy and The Happening. I always want to say The Happening, it's just happening. Both were 4 and 4.25 stars. Very short, very succinct, and very impactful. And then tied for first place, we've got Kat and Candace with 9.5 out of 10. Kat gave me Migrations in Piranesi, and Candace gave me Cemetery Boys and The Reformatory, which were all just wonderful. I enjoyed this so much. Thank you so much if you stuck with me through all of this, or even if you bounced around and only followed the timestamps, because I am planning on putting timestamps in here. This is a long video. It was so much fun to do. It was such a huge project, an ambitious project, but I'm glad I did it. I'm proud of myself. I feel like I accomplished a major feat. And this was so fun. If you want to continue to hear about my reading journey, you can subscribe to this channel. I've been uploading a video every Thursday, and I've been doing pretty good on keeping that schedule consistent, so pause for boat. I believe the next video that I'll be uploading will be my February wrap-up, so if you're interested to see all of the other books that I've been reading during February, because there are other books. This is a huge reading month for me. I went through a lot of books this month. If you want to hear about all those, then make sure you come back next week for the wrap-up, because I've got a lot of good stats for you. A lot of fun things, a lot of fun books. So yeah, that's gonna be all. I'm not gonna keep you any longer. Thanks for being here. Goodbye.